Hello and welcome to the Off the Map Tour 2020 here on Zwift Live as we invite elite teams from Australia, New Zealand and around the globe to take part in this 4-race series. 4 tough courses across 4 days with men and women racing on all the same courses but never on the same day. We'll be exploring further into many of the Zwift maps and racing on some of the less ridden roads across the platform. The teams battle it out, importantly, to wear the off-the-map leaders jersey. And it's not just the elites that get the chance to ride the off-the-map tour. It's also an opportunity for you, starting from tomorrow, to take part in the event. 4 races with 2 weeks to be able to do it. An exclusive map kit to be able to wear in-game, and then a matching jersey to be able to buy once you've completed the event so you can take Zwift out into the real world. Hello and welcome to this, the first of the 4 races. I'm Matthew Keenan, joined by a guy who's raced on Zwift quite a bit in the past and been a winner of the Australian National Road Series 4 times. Pat Shaw, I'm looking forward to getting into the racing. 4 races, day 1. I know it's going to be tough.
Well, it will be tough, but the Aussies in particular had that really good race block and they've had just a perfect little cushion of rest time to be really ready and primed for this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all unfolds.
We've got a double header today. The women, they're racing in London. They're starting in around about an hour. They've got the Triple Loops course. I'll be joined by Hannah Walker in commentary for that one. Looking forward to seeing that race. But first, we do have the men. They're into Watopia. It's a customised version of the Three Sisters course, and it finishes at the top of the Volcano KOM. This is a course that a lot of people will know many of the climbs well, but putting them all together is tough. So we got Matt Stevens to give us a bit of a preview as to what the riders can expect.
We've got an absolute corker of a race for you to kick off the Off the Map race series this month. Incorporating Watopia's 3 oldest descents with team points available on each, our riders are going to be taking on just over 40 kilometres and 3,000 excruciating feet of climbing today. It's time to get into that hurt locker and throw away the key. Starting out in downtown Watopia, our riders would take on the hilly KOM forward, short but punishing, and, fun fact, the first ever timed KOM segment on Watopia. There'll be a chance to catch a bit of a breather on the descent before hanging left on Ocean Boulevard and then right onto the Sequoia Circle as they make their way to the longest climb of the route, the epic KOM forward. After a bonus climb up the radio tower at our halfway point, we're on to our second descent of the race. It will only be the briefest of respites, however, as our riders will need to take on the third and final climb up the Volcano KOM, then they can finally call it a day.
It's a tough course, Pat. It does no favours for the sprinters. I can't imagine any of them surviving that amount of climbing.
No, certainly not. And that's why I'm really looking forward to one of the older guys on the block, Mark O'Brien, a great friend of mine. He was really strong recently in the series as we had it during the winter in Australia. I really think he can really turn the screws tonight early and upset a few of the favourites.
He has been in good form. We'll take a look at a few of the favourites to win the opening stage a little bit later on. But first, across to one of the younger guys, we've seen this platform be used a lot throughout the COVID lockdown period. And one of the guys who has really shone, particularly in the virtual Tour de France, was a young Australian by the name of Freddie Ovett. He now rides with the Israel Startup Nation team, and next year he's going to be a teammate of Chris Froome's. So we got Greg Henderson to have a chat with one of the stars of the future, Freddie Ovett.
There's Freddie Ovett. He is my outside bet for today, and of course won at stage 1 of the Tour for All, beating some of the finest professionals in the world, and is always on Zwift.
Now you've got a pretty impressive sporting pedigree off the bike. Now you were actually a very, very talented runner yourself, weren't you?
I was a runner my whole life. I wanted to sort of follow in the footsteps of my father, but not exactly the easiest thing to do. When he was one of the greatest of all time. Seeing how he competed on the track just blows my mind. You know, if I had to name sort of a figure that I've been inspired by my whole life, it's definitely my dad, no doubt.
So this year would have been a great year if we had had a full season of racing. How's that been for you, in this COVID world as a competitive cyclist?
I was sort of picked up by the team as a guy that they wanted to give a lot of race days in order to to learn how to race properly. When quarantine started, it was like, wow, I probably needed those race days more than anybody. So that's what led me to Zwift. It actually made my lockdown experience incredibly positive, and I actually enjoyed it.
Tour for All, you won a stage, and then obviously stage 2 of the virtual Tour de France, you were millimetres from a victory, and then you backed that up on stage 4 to actually take the virtual Tour de France stage.
Falkner comes over the top, but it's Freddie Obet. It looks like Freddie Obet into the polka dots takes the win. Perfectly timed sprint by the Australian rider from Israel, Startup Nation.
Just to see little avatar names with, Mike Woods and Geraint Thomas and all these guys, it obviously brings certain validity to the race. And to consistently do well, it's like, okay, well, I'm obviously doing something right physically.
Now, Israel Startup Nation has signed Tour de France winner Chris Froome. However, when you get to ride against him, it'll be you that has got the first Tour de France stage, albeit on Zwift. Now, do you reckon you'll rub up shoulders against old Froome dog and give him a bit of a hard time about that?
100%. Yeah, first conversation. Hey, Froome. Froome dog, who's got the latest TDF victory, big fella?
Now, you've got some big wins and Everesting under your belt now on Zwift. Any major ambitions, goals left on the platform?
A friend of mine said to me, you'd be silly not to continue doing Zwift regularly, because it's not very often you find something that you're one of the best at. And I kind of laughed, and I thought about it, and I was, it's hard to find something that you're sort of pretty good at, consistently. And I guess Zwift is that for me, so it makes me feel kind of good about myself. I'd like to maybe one day get involved in the Pro Series, the Pro-Am sort of series that goes on. Yeah, just continue racing the best.
Pat, it's always tough for somebody to follow in the footsteps of a famous parent. And Steve Ovett, believe it or not, was a guy that I did a school project on in grade 4 in 1984 as part of the Los Angeles Olympics. So he does have really big shoes to follow, Freddie.
Well, he does, but he's going about it in his own way, and I think that's what's important, to own your own journey. And he certainly explains there why there's positive ways of looking at things, and I think he's looking at things through both eyes and seeing there's opportunities through the virtual racing world, and they align with his opportunities in the real world racing as well. And he's a great rider with a huge amount of talent. I just hope we start to see that in real life racing for Freddie Ovett.
And a good role model for a lot of the people racing in this event today. Let's take a look at the format for race 1. We've already seen Matt Stevens give us a bit of a run through of the course itself. Importantly, Pat, accumulating points, they're critical. It's 41 kilometres around the Three Sisters circuit. There's 2 King of the Mountains points, but big points at the finish line, Pat, 25 for the win.
Yeah, and that's what interests me. Are the riders, like some of our favourites, for example, going to be aggressive from the start and try and just maximise the total points? Or do they remember they've got to race again in just a few days' time and aim more for those finish line points? It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, but you've got to be a good mathematician as well as a strong rider.
It's a points race with plenty of climbing. In terms of the power-ups, they're going to be important as well, and choosing the right moment to use them, Pat. The lightweight is going to be really valuable if you've got that at the right time.
Oh, certainly, but we've also seen riders using aero power-ups on sprint finishes uphill, notably in the recent series that we've watched in Australia. But tonight, we're going to have to wait and see how lucky they are as they go under the banners and pick up these power-ups, because we know they're crucial. They're crucial to setting up your team for victory, but also they can be the difference at the finish line.
Let's now take a look at some of the favourites for the opening of the races in the Off the Map Tour 2020, race number 1. And it is a stacked field, but Pat, across this group, it's not just the Australians that we're taking a look at, starting with Dan Fleeman.
Yes, well, Dan, he rode for Cervelo Test Team back in the day, I think 2008. But he certainly is a very strong rider and one we want to watch tonight. And that's why he is one of our riders to watch. But how is he going to find the early climbs? I want to see him being aggressive tonight.
Jesse Fentonby for Oliver's Real Food Racing. He's got a pretty strong team. Ollie Jones is on that squad as well. I think Jesse might find this course a fraction tough tonight.
Yes, but he is a rider that's capable of climbing. And again, because of the way the race is structured, maybe he can get in a little breakaway and see how that happens early on the course. But this course tonight, really, really tough.
Jay Vine, he's my favourite.
Oh, well, you've got to it just before me. Jay Vine, he has to be our favourite from what we've seen in the past months. It'd be unusual if he hasn't had some form of break, but he certainly would be our big favourite tonight.
And Ben Healy, your thoughts?
Well, Ben Healy, as well as Lionel Vujasan, I think they're the ones to be watching. They'd be wild cards for mine tonight, Matt. And Jay Vine, he's really going to have to be on his best form to make sure that he doesn't give them any leeway at all.
We know that Lionel raced really well on Zwift early in the season, certainly early in the lockdown period. I wonder whether the little break, freshen up outdoors, comes back indoors, and he might be full of energy again and buzzing up towards the front. Well, they're our favourites. They're the ones to watch. Let's now get to the action as the race is already underway. And Pat, it hasn't taken long. They're straight onto the climb.
Yeah, well, it's going to be important to be aggressive early because you much prefer to be on the front foot than chasing. Ollie Jones, well, no. He's always at the front, and it is with Jay Vine. He is an extremely talented Zwift rider, is Ollie Jones, but also remembering he's got experience all the way back to the Zwift Academy in its inaugural year. So a fantastic rider who actually won the Zwift Academy in the second year. So he's definitely got the talent and the skill set required on this course. Tim Cutler's another one to be watching tonight for mine, Matt. He was really, really good in the Australian National Virtual Road Series racing. And I think that he can also be one of those wild card riders tonight because he climbs really well, but he also has that ability to stay at a high heart rate, giving him a great time trial capability. So if he is away solo, he could go all the way.
And Dan Fleeman, who we mentioned just before, he's got himself up towards the front as well, which is a pretty good start. And Aiden Sinclair is also towards the front, the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing. As we now pick up Gavin Dempster, and you look at the sort of numbers, the heart rate already at 180 beats per minute. Even without knowing Gavin's threshold, Pat, you know that 180 for anybody is close to the red zone.
Well, certainly. I'd never had a high heart rate in my racing career. 180 was my peak. But for Gavin, potentially he's got a lot higher heart rate. But more importantly, right at the moment, let's check out the numbers. 416 watts. But he rides at a good high cadence. And we can see that in that green colour in after the second graphic down below Gavin's live cam. That keeping that cadence quite high is going to preserve his legs, and he looks quite good. 482 watts, don't worry about that at 182 beats per minute, but it shows that the pressure is on from the onset.
And he's got the fan on. You can see their hair just flapping in the breeze as he tries to keep the engine not cool, but not overheating. It is tough as they're on the climb and they're now up into the snow line. This is a nice climb to ride if you're not racing. But like a lot of climbs anywhere in the world, whether it's on Zwift or out in the real world, it's vastly different, Pat, racing them versus just riding them.
There's only one time a climb is good with others, Matt, and that is when they are not as good a climber as you. Otherwise, a climb is only good at your own pace, on your own, and I'll meet you at the top, fellas, and we can go down the descents. That's the fun part. But up the front, a lot of our pre-race favourites, Fleeman, you spoke about, Vujasan, he was up there as well. Mark O'Brien, who we sort of touched on a little bit before the start, he can be one to be really aggressive, particularly on the climbs, can't he?
Well, importantly, looking for the points so far to see the top of the leaderboard with the opening points going. The Canyon team managing to pick up the maximum points on the first of the climbs. Sydney CC then in second position. So the favourites already early on, Pat, showing themselves up towards the front of the race. No great surprises there.
Well, yes, and we looked at the Canyon team, and they really do stand out on paper. But certainly there are other riders that can come out tonight and really tear them apart. So these point system is something that the riders need to be thinking about and also doing the maths as the race goes on so they make sure they stay in the race. Remembering, it is team points. It's not individual points. Yes, it's good to have an individual rider high up in the stage finish, but it is important to be collectively picking up points as a group throughout the stage, and particularly on the finish line, where there's 25 points for the win.
Yeah, big points at the finish line. So it's a handy lead at this stage for the Kenyan Espoir team. They're on 25 points. Sydney CC on 9 points as we join Ollie Jones in that familiar position with the green screen in the background, the microphone in front of him, the headband on, looking as if he's going to play against Bjorn Borg in the semi-finals at Wimbledon to see if he can take on John McEnroe, and the towel draped around the neck. He's killing it on Zwift at the moment, Ollie Jones.
Oh, any chance for you to put in a tennis pun, you will take advantage of. But Ollie Jones, he's one of our favourites. How imposing does he look in real life? He is a big guy. He really is, and he's strong. We'll see him punch out over 400 watts quite consistently. Much like we're seeing right now, he really produces the power quite efficiently too. He doesn't move all over the bike. He's very neat. But the great thing that I find about Ollie Jones is he sort of puts to sleep all of these thoughts that to be a big guy you can't climb. He can climb, and he's caused some real trouble in the previous series already this year.
He can seriously climb. Worth noting, Pat, at this point, there's a lot of the riders in the front group using the invisibility power-up. They want to get that out of the way in the hope that they can get the lightweight by the time they get to the climb up to the finish line.
Yes, well, the invisibility is one of the newest additions to the power-ups on Zwift, and I'm not so sure that there's many riders that actually know how to use it well just yet. I think it's actually a very powerful power-up, particularly in a teams race, because you could get the invisibility, throw down an attack, get a gap. All of a sudden, it puts pressure on the other teams that weren't aware that you're up the front. And obviously, a lot of these riders will be talking via Discord or WhatsApp or other communication social medias to tell each other what moves they're going to make. And I think that's a really good power-up to use effectively in this way, particularly in a teams race.
A couple of little gaps just opening up at the front here as they go across a little bit of a section where there's some respite on the climb, as they've still got a couple of Ks to go before they get to the next of the King of the Mountains points. Ollie Jones, Mark O'Brien, Jay Vine, some of our pre-race favourites still staying up towards the front. Importantly, Pat, once they go through the King of the Mountains points, they then have a little more climbing to go as they head onto the radio tower. There's no points at the top of the radio tower, but that could be an opportunity for somebody to split the race apart and then charge off into the distance.
Oh, definitely. And the man on the screen, Tim Cutler, he strikes me as one that may be going for a move such as this. It is such a grueling climb to the radio tower, particularly if the riders are sprinting hard over the top for the points, which we suspect they will be. But it'll be interesting to see whether someone has more of the guts to go for glory this far from the line. That will be a big ask from here, but it certainly is a real struggle. There's no worse feeling than climbing up to the radio tower and seeing that speed go into single digits.
Yeah, it gets really steep when they do make the turn onto the radio tower, but they're not there yet, and they're still searching for the arch and the all-important points. As we mentioned before, the Kenyan team, they have accumulated plenty of points at the first of the King of the Mountains climbs. It looks like the pace has backed off ever so slightly when you look at the visuals, but then you look at the watts per kilo, the pace hasn't backed off at all, Pat. They're still riding at 5.5, 6 watts per kilo.
And let's also remember that they have covered 22 kilometres, 18.2 kilometres, should I say, in distance already. So it's not like we haven't been racing. They've been racing for almost half an hour, and still the pressure is on and the high power. And now we start to see them really lifting the pace and getting into position because it's not too far away from that next points.
This is Jay Vine that we're on board with now, taking a look at Jay. His heart rate looks pretty low based on the advantage that we've had of being able to see him race quite a bit so far throughout the season on Zwift with the Shram Send It Series and the National Road Series in Australia. We know that he's got a fair bit of room to grow with that heart rate.
Oh, certainly. And also, this probably shows you evidently how hard Ollie Jones is riding and some of the other riders. As we see a move here coming from the side, it's Jay Vine that's really looking like he is most comfortable of the lot of the riders that sit in this group. but he's also become very strategic in these races. And I've got to give him hats off for that. He's really settled himself down. He's not so much about just attacking just for the sake of it. He always has a plan in place. Fleeman, our man that we spoke about at the top of the cast tonight, he's in the front.
He is. He's been chased by Ollie Jones. Jay Vine's not too far behind. I think it was Ollie Jones that we just saw use the invisibility power-up. 6% is the grading at this point. And Dan Fleeman has been holding more than 8 watts per kilo for quite a while. He's now been hauled back in by Ollie Jones. This is a real battle for the top of the climb, Pat. And Jay Vine is right there in the mix for points.
Well, Jay Vine, he needs to pick up some points too. They need to start isolating a little bit of all these points that the Canyon Esports team is taking over the top of the climb. It's going to be close. Looks like Jones. Oh, no, he's been overtaken just on the line. Well, it's going to be Ollie Jones, it looks, that took the maximum points over the line. And we'll see how that affects the points classification overall. I think Jay Vine was in second. Fleeman just behind him. Dempster, O'Brien, Vujasan.
Yeah, and so the pre-race favourites, the predictions, and we had some conversation with everybody at HQ at Zwift about who to put up as the pre-race favourites, and each of them are showing themselves right at the front. Stage 1 of the off-the-map tour, and you can do the ride yourself, Pat, tomorrow if you'd like. You can jump on board and ride one of the courses.
Well, I can't even use my son's junior basketball as an excuse, Matt, because that's been cancelled. But that's the thing. We can all get on and have a ride from tomorrow onwards. I really like the concept of being able to purchase the jersey for outdoor riding later on too. That's a great concept, and I'm sure many will take advantage of that. Interesting to see what happens now, Matt Keenan, on this segment.
We're onto the radio tour. This is the toughest part of the climb. There are no points at the top of this. Do you take the risk and put some petrol tickets to the expenditure to try and create a gap and reduce the amount of riders that are with you after the top of this climb? Because this last little kilometre is the toughest kilometre on the course.
Well, I think what we're really seeing here, particularly from Jay Vine, is that he's riding in a teamwork related strategy. He doesn't really want to rip this race apart because actually that will give Canyon even more ability to pick up immense amounts of points. Ollie Jones just picked up the maximum there again for Canyon Esports team. If he was to split it on the radio tower, potentially he would go away with several from Canyon Esports team, but he needs to be actually taking some of his teammates from the Sydney CC squad. And one of those riders that really will look good throughout this series, and I'm looking forward to Levi Hayward really showing us what he's got. He was in the Zwift Academy for the triathlon, and he's now a triathlon pro. I think he's got some real engine and capability to offer, particularly in stage 2.
Yeah, Ollie Jones, you just saw the update for the points. He's helped Canyon really extend their advantage. We're on board now with Lionel Vujasan, the Belgian, and he's bobbing around. He's pretty charismatic, Pat. He's been one of the highlights of Zwift racing so far in 2020.
Yes, and he was the 2019 Belgian Zwift champion, so he knows all about how to race on Zwift, and plus he's got a really cool name too, so I'm sure people at home will enjoy that as well. And he's looking strong. He hasn't used too much energy. He has been quite conservative at the sprint points, and I always like that because that suggests that that's a rider that's looking to do the biggest work late in the race. And at the end of the day, you can take as many sprint points as you like, but the winner is always remembered at the end of the day.
And significantly for the Canyon team, he and Ollie Jones working together and extending that team's advantage, picking up plenty of points. Well, Ollie Jones is a guy that I often think of, Pat, as a guy who's got a really good sprint finish. Gee, he can climb.
Well, that's right. But gee, he can hurt himself too. And that's his biggest threat to his opposition. He can hurt himself to a level that most others don't wish to. And it doesn't go unnoticed by Ollie. He's also quite open with his time, as we can see. We've got live cam with him as well again tonight. But Jay Vine and Ollie Jones, this isn't the first time we've seen this over the last few months.
I get the impression that Jay Vine is really trying to stretch them. Look at those watts per kilo, 6.2 watts per kilo for Jay Vine. The winner of the Australian National Road Series on Zwift. He's put the whole race under pressure. It's the Kiwi Ollie Jones from the Canyon team who's responding and sticking with him.
I think what's significant is we've seen a 26 beats per minute rise in Jay Vine's heart rate, which shows us a measurement of just how much harder he's going now than before. Before, he was just sitting in the pack. He was nice and calm, but now he's showing what he's got. And the rides that he has evidenced in front of us this past few months shows that all things go well and good. This young man will find himself in a European racing peloton in the not too distant future.
Almost at the top of the climb, getting close to doing the left-hand turn and sweeping around the radio tower. They've opened up an advantage of 11 seconds on Vujasan, O'Brien, Stenning. Moore is also in that group. So too is Lindsay. They've got an advantage, that group, Pat, when it comes to the descent. They can work together and potentially close down the advantage to Vine and Jones, who are off the front.
Yes, certainly. It's not the easiest first segment on the descent. There's a couple of times you have to pedal, and particularly if you're deep in the red over the top of the radio tower, sometimes the legs just won't come good, Matt, and that can be quite tough. But as we know, once you get over 58 kilometres an hour, you can go into the aero tuck, and you and I both know the Vines, they know how to use that aero tuck the best. They are straight away freewheeling, and often, and we saw in the National Road Series recently, Jay would even pedal backwards, which wouldn't mean that he was pedaling, so he'd stay in the aero tuck, but he was still rolling his legs over, which was interesting.
Yeah, and he's doing exactly that right now. And if you are keen to join the Off the Map Tour action, Stage 1 kicks off tomorrow, 4 stages. It's over 2 weeks. You can race against your mates or join a group ride, finish the entire tour, and your chance then is to pre-order the exclusive kit. And I can assure you, Pat, the kit is good. I've been lucky enough to get a set of the kit to be able to do a preview of one of the courses, and I've ridden this course today. And Pat, I won't be sharing with you the time it took me to cover the course, because I think Jay Vine and Ollie Jones are going to put it significantly into the shade.
Yeah, but in fairness, Matt, you had to ride it on your own, so no drafting.
That was the difference.
So, that would be the difference. Yeah, so Ollie Jones continues to lead the way at the moment, and, well, it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. We always expect him to be in form, much like the man zooming past him as we speak, Jay Vine. But Vujasan, also for the Canyon Esports team, not that far behind, and that's where they hold really the weight in numbers at the moment. They've got a great lead in the team's points so far, but again, this is only the first stage. They've got to do it throughout the whole 4 stages, but they've got a good lead at the moment.
Well, Mark Stenning has asked us to give young Ollie Stenning a bit of love, conceding that he is a little bit biased. Well, Mark, I'm not biased, and Ollie is riding brilliantly. This is fantastic to see him right up there in the mix, and he's actually a key part of that chasing group, closing down the gap to Vine and Jones. It's now down to just 7.5 seconds. Pat, at the top of the climb, it was 11.
And much of our form line, Matt, we are drawing out of our telecasts of the National Road Series virtual race on Zwift recently. And Ollie Stenning, he matured through that series and came out the end of that really peaking. Jay Vine, 600 watts, 94 revs per minute. And you can see that heart rate's dropped on the descent. And that is one of his key fortes, is his ability to rest and recover quickly from his attacks. Now he's back on the pedals, getting that speed up, and all they're trying to do is just wind a few riders out of contention for today's stage. And at the moment, though, Stenning, Vujasan and Moore, they're right there behind, and they're hunting them down.
You could see the knowledge, Jay Vine, with this course, likewise with Jones. This is one of those descents where you also get a couple of bonus climbs as well. It's not smoothly downhill the whole way, and it's really important to get momentum before you do that little bit of an incline. So both of them at the front, and Stenning did exactly the same. When you take a look at his wattage output, they've done a little bit of a sprint just at the base of the climb to get momentum over the top.
This is always the parts that have hurt me on this descent, is You come over the top, you've already been stretched out on the climb, you've gone up to radio tower, again, stretched again, and it's these little accelerations that you must prove are important to stay with this front group, but still under 10 seconds. Ollie Jones and Jay Vine, they're not really perturbed too much about how big the gap is. They'll keep pushing the power, but at the moment, both in the aero tuck, trying to get a bit of recovery. They've both got their towels around them, trying to absorb that perspiration because they are pushing some big watts. Now, 740 watts for Ollie Jones. He's a big boy.
That was one of those kickers, a little rise in the road momentarily. It was at 5%, and Ollie Jones has just punched over it. But, Pat, look at his heart rate. He got it back down into the 140s. As he was on the climb, it was up towards the 180 mark. And again, you see Ollie Jones is in a position where he's in the super tuck and he can start to recover. And his team, Canyon, are in such a strong position. Jay Vine is picking up some good points for Sydney CC. And I must say, their kit, it looks good.
It looks really good. We always talk about that in real life, don't we? But how good is it on Zwift when and Off the Map tour kicks off tomorrow, but you can actually just change your kits and your bike and customize everything. And the great thing about it is it only costs you the drops that you're sweating. It's not costing you real money. And you put the carbon wheels in one day, might put in the alloys the next. But Ollie Jones, he's got the carbon wheels in today, 475 watts. That's 6.3 watts per kilo, man, and that's certainly significant power. And they're maintaining that 10-second gap. This is almost a grueling situation for the group chasing because they're so close, yet they are so far because they're not really clawing them back.
Yeah, and significantly, when the chasing group got towards the top of the radio tower, it was a slightly bigger group than what it is now. It's now in a position where it's 2 being chased by just 3 or 4, whereas at one point they had a bigger group than that. It would have given them the numerical advantage, but that's not the case anymore. Just seeing the numbers, Mark O'Brien, surprisingly, has dropped off the pace. But the featherweight, and that's not a power-up, it's just Mark O'Brien's physique, he's lost contact on the way down.
Those accelerations on the kickers that have really upset Mark O'Brien through that situation. If it's all uphill, he is phenomenal, but acceleration's not really his forte. He'll still keep pushing on and try and catch back up, as we can see the split view now, front group and chase group. As we know, Ollie Stenning, he was strong last month in the National Road Series on Zwift, and he's showing great form here as well. And that's really important because these points are crucial to the teams. He rides for Team AHDR, and they've got some strong riders. Gary Mueller, they've got Graham Frisley, and Tim Cutler. They're really strong riders. We know Tim's close to that top 15 at the moment, but on the flatter courses, Graham Frisley, well, we all know what he's capable of.
Yeah, I've just had an update on the status of Ollie Stenning from Melissa Robinson about the fact that he's recently, in a club race across in Western Australia, got caught up in a crash, broken collarbone as a result of that, and it was about 4 weeks post-surgery now, and he's racing at the front at this point. What does that tell you, Pat, about his dedication to be in a position to be racing at the front so soon after a nasty crash like that?
Well, it's always been a crucial aspect of our sport of cycling, is that there are, unfortunately, falls that you're going to have or illnesses that you will pick up. And it's how you come out the back of those, and whether you drop the ball and say it's all too hard or whether you push on and become better for it. As I said before this crash, Ollie was in fantastic form. And so it's easy when you're in good form. But when you get upset and you have a bad moment or a bad crash, it's easy to give up. And he's shown well. He hasn't given up. He's continued to train. Obviously, his form's good. And after 4 weeks post-surgery, he's going really well.
He's going really well. He's in a chasing group of 3. They've got 10 seconds to go. 10 kilometres to go. And the gap has just gone from 10 seconds out to 11 seconds. It's grown further to 12 seconds. It's going the right direction for Vine and Jones, the wrong direction for the 3 chasers.
Yeah, still 10 kilometres though, so there's plenty of room to move. Probably the biggest detractor for the chase group is that 2 of the strongest riders are in front, And I wonder whether Vujicic would be interested in offering any assistance in this group of three at the moment to chase back. It wouldn't probably be in his best interest. So it's looking advantage front group at the moment.
For the team, for the classification, to win the series, he shouldn't be. He's got his teammate Jones out in front. Vujicic can sit in this group and mop up the points for third place, and then the Canyon team further extend their advantage, and they're already in the lead, having dominated the first two King of the Mountains prizes. They've now just got the big finish line to come.
Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 for the chasers, because if they're to allow Vujicic to come to the front, the pace and the power is going to drop off and the lead is going to extend, much like we are seeing now. 19, 20, 21 seconds now it is. And so in this situation, unfortunately, Matt, and we often see it in the classics, don't we, in real-life racing, it's actually going to have to, they just got to go to the front and ride. They've got to go to the front, ride, try bring back the front group. And if it doesn't come back, well, they just need to be settled for fourth and fifth potentially. But fourth and fifth better than letting him go to the front and potentially being caught from behind as well and beaten by those riders also.
Well, there's two good elements to this for the others in that chasing group, Pat. This is race number 1 in the 4-race series for Off the Map Tour. So there's 3 more opportunities for those in the chasing group. The second good point is I can't see the next chasing group in the distance. So they look as if they are going to be in a position where they will be fighting it out for third place. And all of them, amongst those chasers, they have ridden really well.
It's funny to really see this front group of Jones and Vine. In real life, you'd probably suggest that the Jones has got the better of Vine, but on Zwift, they actually split it almost straight down the middle, 50-50. It will depend on the power-ups. We spoke about that earlier in the cast, that the power-ups are really going to be crucial, particularly on the finish line. And these two riders, they are each other's nemesis. They come head-to-head more often than not.
Good to see Jordan Sloan joining the conversation and asking the question about the power from Vujicic and is he sitting in. I think at this point, now that he's seen the gap extend out to that 30-second mark, he's probably contemplating, well, I can work with this group, not catch my teammate who's amongst the leaders, Ollie Jones, and make sure that I stay away from anybody from behind so as I can collect even more points for Canyon and extend our advantage.
Oh, the way he's riding at the moment looks like a very intelligent ride, actually. And although his teammate Ollie Jones is probably going to take the biscuits for the team today, his support role in sitting in this second group and making sure they get valuable points to top up from that first or second place that it looks like Jones and Vine will be vying out for.
Oh, they are powering away inside the last 8 kilometres. Their advantage is now out over that 40-second mark to the 3 chasers, riding brilliantly. They tried to break each other up the radio tower. And there's the post that was coming from Mark Stedding about giving his boy Ollie some love. Mark, Ollie is riding fantastically. And there he is at the front of the chasing group of 3. But he's got more company. The chasers are coming back. So this is exactly what the fear was perhaps for the Belgium, Vujicic, about the chasers coming from behind. And that second group now is starting to grow.
I've got to say, it looked like 2 St Kilda Cycling Club jerseys in there as well, so it's got to be Mark O'Brien for certain, potentially Nick White or also Kyle Ward there. So these are valuable points for them as well, and not the type of riders that you'd like to let in on a difficult day, Matt Keenan. These are the riders you want to space away from. So unfortunately, Vujicic's negativity in that group, albeit the right tactic, has meant that they've been caught by those back riders, which is including Moore and also in there as well. Dempster is caught back up as well. Dempster back a bit further, but Mills, Keelan, Lindsay, Moore and Ollie Stenning now make up that group with Vujicic.
Well, they find themselves still at 47 seconds behind. And perhaps Vujicic at that point, he may not have been sitting on Pat. We're not exactly sure. Only he really knows the answer, because you've still got to have the legs to try and stay away. As our 2 leaders, Vine and Jones, making their way through the volcano, the legs are heating up amongst the chasers, who are now at a deficit of some 50 seconds as they're down to 6.5 kilometres remaining.
Yeah, they're flying around this course, aren't they? And in just ticked over 50 minutes now, and with just 5 kilometres or a little bit over to go, these riders look like they're going to be sprinting it out for the minor place of 3rd down to 10th. But those points are so crucial. As we look at Mills Keeling, who's in this second group, and it'll be interesting to see because he has come out of the back group, how he feels on this climb. The finishing climb, very different to the other two that they have tackled during the event.
Well, it's been hot in the UK, so for George, it's sun's out, guns out, and now he's making his way up a little bit of a rise here. Good chance to stretch the legs as well. He's almost smiling, Pat. Looks like he's enjoying punching his way around the Three Sisters circuit at 171 beats per minute.
There's always a fine line between smile and grimace, and I think he's riding that line right as we speak. But a very good performance so far. One rider that I really would like to highlight again is Mark O'Brien. This finish is a really good finish for Mark O'Brien. Even on tired legs, he's going to be strong. As we look at Gavin Dempster, who is got the invisibility power-up. He's using the invisibility power-up. So right at the moment, none of the other riders can see him. They're wondering, where has he gone? He doesn't seem to be pushing an attack. He's probably hoping to use that and pick up a new power-up at the banner.
Yeah, and he's in the 3rd group. He's along with Dan Fleeman, and they're at 1 minute and 32 seconds behind the leaders. So just 32 seconds behind the chasing group that includes Vujasan, Stenning, O'Brien. So they're still in with a chance to close it down to that group and do battle for a podium finish, a top 3. But as we've mentioned a couple of times, Pat, this is the first of 4 races in the Off the Map Tour. Consistency across all 4 stages is really important.
Well, and with Dempster and Fleeman both riding for indoor specialists, a top 10 position finish where they finish 9th and 10th or 8th and 9th or 9th and 8th, they're going to be great points for them as a team. So multiple numbers in these groups is really crucial. Obviously, Canyon ZCC esports team really look like they're in the driver's seat as we look at Vujasan again. He's been one of the riders of focus. He was a rider to watch tonight. But it looks like his teammate, it's going to be Ollie Jones who fights out for the victory against Jay Vine, and then they'll have to settle for the minor places that remain.
And Lionel's surrounded by a bunch of guys who are using the invisibility power-up so as they can get that out of the system in the hope that in the last 4.5 Ks they get blessed with another power-up, hoping that it's the featherweight. But Lionel looks really composed, Pat. He looks good. Meanwhile, it is a battle out in front between Jay Vine and Ollie Jones.
Yeah, and we've seen it so often, but it never gets old because we know both of them will not hold back anything, Matt. It's going to be a real hard fight to the line, and it will come down to power up. If one of the two has an arrow, I think they'll get over the top of the other, but if they've both got the same power up, this could be a real close finish right on the line.
As we go on board with Jay Vine. Throughout the Australian National Road Series on Zwift, we referred to it as the Vine Show because both Bree and Jay performed brilliantly. Bree's going to be racing shortly in the women's event in the Off the Map Tour. At the moment, though, it's Jay who's in the box seat to take out stage number 1.
Yes, well, Bree will definitely be one to watch later on. But now they're probably just sort of feeling each other out a little bit. Jay, 164 beats per minute. We know he's got plenty left in the tank. Just standing up on the pedals, one final stretch before this real fight to the line starts with Ollie Jones. And they've definitely been the two that we were watching since quite a while ago. They've been alone for about 15, 16 kilometres. And the gap now over a minute, so it certainly looks like it will definitely be Jay Vine and Ollie Jones fighting it out for the victory in this first stage.
No question. And they both know this road, this climb really well. So too do you, Pat. And personally, having ridden it recently, the last 100 metres can catch you by surprise.
Well, it certainly can, and we've seen it before, particularly in these Pro-Am series, that the timing of your use of power-up is absolutely crucial, but also the execution of your tactic, as we see a message coming through. Also, Lionel Vujasan long, straight off the L'Oreal. Yes, L'Oreal commercial shoot. I really agree with that, actually. Nice
That's
hair.
a great post. That MAAP social media post of the race so far. Do you get a special MAAP jersey for the best social media posts? You should, because Craigie leads.
Well, Craigie needs to get on there and do a bit on Zwift himself. Shout out to him tonight. But Vujasani starts to look more focused, even on his live cam too. He knows this is really crucial for his team, Canyon Esports ZCC. They really need to get those big points today and execute all the way to the line, because they've been so strong throughout this stage. Now cap it off with a good top 3 finish for his teammate, Ollie Jones.
And he's in with a chance to be able to deliver that result. Meanwhile, Jones and Vine are fighting it out at the front as they are down to just over 2.5 kilometres remaining. And it's all uphill to the finish from here. It's not too steep at this section, but it gets a lot worse towards the top.
It's plain and simple. Who's got the best legs? Because these two, you can't split them on their best days. If they both had best legs, you're going to be looking at a feather between them on the line. But who has the best power up and who executes it the best is going to take out the win. And, they'll be happy for each other, although they are nemesis. That's what I was talking about earlier. They've been in this position so many times before.
Well, I wonder if Jay Vine will go long range. We've seen him already in a few races in 2020, Pat Shaw, where he's just gone to the front and his strategy has been pretty simple. Ride faster than his rival.
Yeah, I don't think that he'll try that with Ollie Jones, but he may, and we have seen these two race together very often. I think they're both so respectful for each other that they're almost waiting for the other to start, and that could lead to quite a late sprint. Again, it's so dependent on the power-up. The power-up's going to be the crucial aspect of this, but both riders are going to pick up really big points today.
To weigh up the strengths between the two of them, Pat, and I won't say strengths and weaknesses, just to weigh up the strengths between the two of them, I'd say that Jay Vine is the slightly better climber, Ollie Jones is the slightly better sprinter. So if Ollie can stick with him, that kick that he's got at the finish could be enough for Ollie to deliver the perfect day for Canyon.
Oh, I totally agree with you on those comments, Matt. It is exactly correct, but both have surprised us in the other departments. Ollie Jones has surprised us today with just how well he's climbed, and Jay Vine, we've seen him before come over the top of real-life pure sprinters like Nick White, Graham Frisley, and so he still packs a punch if he times it to perfection. He has a really strong 20-second output, and I think that's what he needs to do. Try and force Ollie Jones to go a little bit longer than he wants to and see whether he can get him over the top, particularly because this is a power-to-weight finish more than a pure power finish.
As they're approaching the 1 kilometre marker, meanwhile back in the chasing group, those who are doing battle for third place on the stage, Lionel looking pretty good, the Belgian national champion of Zwift from last year. Mark O'Brien is trying to put some pressure on, so too is Moore. Stenning has been really impressive. Nobody able to create a gap, Pat. It's a big battle for third place.
Well, this is where you can lose crucial points. You go from third to ninth. That's a lot of points to be losing. Remember, 25 points for first place on the line. And these riders really know how important these points will add up. Even though it's just the first round, it's going to be crucial. Big move here. Already starting to see riders accelerating through the pack. Looks like that was Moore that went right to the front. And
it was Moore. It's gone into the red. We're inside the last kilometre at the front of the race. It is the Jones versus Vine battle. It's New Zealand versus Australia. Stage 1 of the Off the Map Tour. One brilliant sprinter and an outstanding climber. This is an arm wrestle on Zwift all the way through to the finish, Pat. It's anybody's guess as to who will take it out.
And they're playing a little bit of cat and mouse as well. The wattage isn't that high. Who's going to go first? They know the gap's big enough. We're waiting for the acceleration to come under 500 metres to the finish.
Vine it is who sets the tempo. He's trying to stretch out Ollie Jones. They're still just riding, in relative terms for them, conservatively, 5 watts per kilo. They've got the ability to explode in this sprint up into double digits. Let's see what they do. They're following each other really tightly. Ollie Jones just getting a little bit of respite. Now we're seeing the numbers move to red, down to just 300 metres to go. It's Jones and Vine pouring the pressure on at the front. This is a huge race through to the finish line. Stage 1 off the map tour. It's Jones who's got himself just in front. The power up is now in use for Vine. He is desperately closing in, but it's Jones who holds on.
It's Jones that takes it out from Vine. I thought Vine was coming with the lightweight power up, and now we turn our attention to the third place battle as well, because Vujasan in there. We also got Mark O'Brien, who looked really strong earlier, and Ollie Stenning, well, he's had plenty of shout outs. More, he's going to the front now, but it's going to be interesting to see who can wrap up third place here.
Well, this is a big battle for third. Vujasan looking for the perfect day for the Canyon team. Stenning, he's got Dad cheering him on online and screaming at the monitor. We've also seen a strong ride by Mark O'Brien to get himself back into contention. They're waiting to make that final burst. And as we saw with Jones and Vine, Pat, timing is crucial.
Acceleration coming now. Aero power up popped. It's going to be interesting to see who can stay all the way to the line. But Stenning right up there now. More power ups getting popped as well. Matt Vujasan, he needs those points for his Canyon team.
Vujasan, his team has already taken plenty of points. Moving up towards the front to see if he can close in for third position on the stage. And he collects third place. A perfect day for the Canyon team, Pat.
Oh, it's been absolutely ideal. They wouldn't have hoped to have got this many points, but they've got a significant amount today. That will give them great confidence going into the next stage on Monday night. And Ollie Jones, well, he surprised us in conditions that probably favoured Jay Vine. He did get over the top of Jay Vine to take out the victory in this first stage of the off-the-map tour. And rounding out that top three, Vujasan, he was one of our favourites, our pre-race favourites to watch, and well, he didn't disappoint.
That was a fantastic performance by the entire Canyon team. Right from the very first of the climbs, they were the team at the front collecting the maximum points, and they've delivered on all of the climbs. First up on Watopia Hilly KOM, then the Epic KOM, and then through to the finish line across the volcano. They have knocked it out of the ballpark on stage 1. The other teams are going to have to go back and reassess and work out how can we get the better of them.
Yeah, certainly, and a fair bit of work to do too, but the course will change as well, so keep that in mind, that probably today, strategically, this course really did suit the Canyon Esports ZCC team.
Let's take a look at the top 10 on stage 1 of the off-the-map tour. At the front, Pat, it was Ollie Jones getting the better of Jay Vine. Those two, they went on the main climb of the race, and it was then across the radio tower. There were no KOM points where they extended their advantage. And for a little while, I thought just maybe they might get reeled back in. Then we saw the battle for third place, and it was a strong group that were working really well together, trying to get themselves that third place finish. But Canyon did it again with Lionel Vujasan, the Belgian, taking out the points there. It was a super ride by Canyon.
Well, it certainly was. And equally a super ride by Jay Vine. He was the rider that did split the race in the end. He was the aggressor, should I say, up to the radio tower. And then from there, as we see the top 10 now, Matt Keenan.
And it was then behind that, so it was Jones, Vine, Vujasan. Moore was the next best. It was then Lindsay, Stenning, really impressive in 6th. Mills Keeling in 7th position. Dempster in 8th, followed by O'Brien, and then Fleeman in 10th place. But look at the average in terms of the wattage output. 5 watts per kilo, the average for an hour worth of racing of Ollie Jones out in front. Let's take a look at that final battle between Jones and Vine, the sprint to the finish line once again, Pat. And it was pure power from Jones that got the job done.
Yes, and certainly Jay Vine, he tried to wait it out. He tried to time the use of his power up to perfection. And you know what? He wasn't that far off, Matt Keenan. He was coming home with a wet sail, but it was Ollie Jones who maintained, even once his power up finished, he maintained a better power output than his compatriot there in Jay Vine. But I don't think Jay will be disappointed in that ride tonight. He's really been a strong rider, as we see the replay of the minor place getters as well. And what a ride it was from Fleeman and Dempster, who were almost a minute and a half behind the leaders at the base of the final climb, and they caught some of the riders in that second group.
And look at the points for Canyon in terms of the overall teams classification. They really have dominated up in the triple figures after stage one. In cricket terms, Pat, they already get to raise the bat. That's an impressive performance by Canyon Esports, 101 points. Indoor Specialists on 58 points. Then Sydney CC, the team of Jay Vine, on 42. Locked together with St Kilda in third position. It was then the Aussie Hump Day Ride team in fifth place. But you see that third place with Sydney CC and St Kilda, Pat?
Yeah.
Sydney CC, they've got Jay Vine out in front battling for the win, but St Kilda, they showed their depth. Only 3 riders in the race, but they had them right in the mix the whole way through.
And AHDR as well there with 39 points. As I said, they've got young Graham Frisley to come back as well, and also Gary Mueller, who's incredibly strong in the other courses. So I think it's not all Canyon's race just yet, but wow, you'd be really excited with that lead if you're in their team.
Yeah, Pat, it was a fantastic race. We're now going to turn our attention to the women's race, and we'd like to welcome to the broadcast a woman who's all across both the men's peloton and the women's peloton. I've had the privilege of commentating with her in real life across in Spain for the Madrid Challenge. Hannah Walker, good to have you on board for the Off the Map Tour. Unfortunately, a little bit of an audio issue. I can't hear Hannah at the moment, so hopefully we can get that resolved fairly quickly. But the women's race, it is a difficult course. It's getting underway as we speak at the moment. So as we get Hannah's audio sorted out, let's take a look at what confronts the women. We got Kate Bates, who's a world champion in her own right. Back in 2008, she won the points race on the velodrome. She's ridden the course that the women will be battling on. Let's take a look at her thoughts on the course that the women will be riding for stage one of the Off the Map Tour.
Well, today we are riding through the Surrey Hills and around the loops on the triple loops lap of London, just over 41 kilometres. But really it's divided into a couple of sections. The first 20k are reasonably flat. We've got a sprint there in the mall, and then we head to the hills. We go up both Leith Hill and Box Hill. So you've got to save some energy. As the road gets into these 5% little pinches, make sure you get out of your seat. Otherwise it can really burn on your legs. While there's no opportunities for points in this first lap, you really need to look after yourself. So make sure you're taking a drink, because once we hit that sprint on the mall, it's almost straight into the Surrey Hills. More chances for points, so rest up while you can. As we come through the finish of the first loop and onto the Classique, we're coming up to the first sprint. You've got to make sure you choose your gear early on. Our first chance at points today is at the 14.7 kilometre mark. So drop it into that big chain ring, and here we go. Oh boy, your lungs will definitely be burning, but this is the perfect time for someone to make an attack, so you've got to make sure you're ready. As we head up on to Leith Hill, don't be fooled. We haven't hit the KOM yet, but we're getting up to 9% gradient. Once we hit this KOM, it's about 4 minutes to the top. Let's do this. These steep sections are really tough going, getting up to the 10% mark. I'm not even going race pace, but I'm sweating it out. Well, the section between the two climbs isn't flat like you might think. It's still rolling along at up to 5%. We've got about 6 minutes of climbing on Box Hill. This is really the make or break. It's pretty tough going up here. You don't get a single second to take the power off the pedals. Be won and lost right here. This is the last really nasty pinch, over 10%, before we descend down. Everything you've got, now's the time to use it. An absolutely crucial bit here to get up from the underground. 15%. Oh boy. Just straight run into the finish. Nice and flat and fast. And we're done.
It is a tough course. Kate Bates putting herself to the test on that course. And I'm sure that those of you who ride Zwift regularly, as I do, will know most of those climbs. We've sorted out the audio now with Hannah Walker. Hannah, good to be back in commentary with you.
Yeah, let's go for the second time. Great to be in comms with you, and fabulous race we saw there in the men's. Yeah, exciting stuff from Canyon ZCC. And looking forward to this women's race. We've got a really stacked field with the likes of Sarah Gigante coming back in to the frame. So very much looking forward to Off the Map.
Well, we've taken a look at the course there from Kate Bates. You know this course reasonably well. What are your thoughts on how difficult or not this circuit is and what type of rider it suits?
Yeah, it's going to be one of those riders who, has studied the course, knows it well, knows where to make the accelerations. Which teams can work well together as well? Do teams want to try and put certain riders in just for the intermediate sprints and then leave other riders for the finish? We can get a look at the race format here and the points on the mile. There's top 6 placings, points 6 through to 1. The same on the Leith Hill KOM, and on the finish line, it's points for the top 22 riders with 25 down to 1 point.
So let's now take a look at some of the favourites to be able to win today. And I'm keen to get your thoughts on who we should be paying really close attention to. We've just seen Jay Vine. Now we've seen his wife, Bree Vine, riding for Sydney CC.
Yeah, he had an incredible race, didn't he? And I think Bree will take a lot of motivation from that. But another rider to really keep your eye on is Vicky Whitelaw, represented Australia at 5 consecutive World Championships. But a rider not listed here, Sarah Gigante. As I mentioned before, she's had a superb virtual Tour de France just a few weeks ago. If she can carry that form through to today, this course, and with her aggressive nature, will certainly suit her.
We saw the St Kilda team ride really well in the men's race. They had good numbers at the front. They've got Samara Shepherd here. She knows this format really, really well.
Yeah, former Zwift Academy finalist last year as well. She's from New Zealand, but certainly knows this format very, very well, and a very strong climber too. So will suit this route. 544 meters of climbing on this route today.
It makes me uncomfortable just thinking about it. Helen Mackay from the Turbo team. I don't know a lot about her, to be honest.
Yeah, she's a level 50, so very experienced on Zwift. She won her first Pro-Am race back in January at the Tour de Zwift. So, we'll take a lot of confidence this year in 2020. Done a lot of racing, but one to watch, certainly.
And Lizzie Duncan, she's made her way across from triathlon and uses this platform quite regularly. The power-ups are all important. Everybody wants the lightweight with a few 100 meters to go. Yeah,
they certainly do, don't they? It's the chosen one. And we've got 2 event power-ups here as well, the burrito and the invisibility. So, all these power-ups, very, very useful if you use them in the right manner. And I'm sure all these riders racing today, they come with pack a lot of experience. So they'll be knowing what to where to use them, and what they want as well, what they want to keep back.
Well, let's get to the race. The action is underway in the women's event, the first of 4 races in the Off the Map Tour. We saw a brilliant performance in the men's race, Ollie Jones and Jay Vine tearing away from the peloton. This is another hilly circuit, and we're on board now with Emily Watts. We can see her in the middle of the peloton. At the moment, they're reasonably boxed up together, which is a good sign that we're in for plenty of action when they get to the lower slopes of the first of the climbs, Hannah.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, all together at the minute. Just a few gaps starting to open up, but the pace and the speed, just everyone keeping it together. But with so much climbing, riders don't want to go too early. It's a long way to go on your own. 27.5 kilometers to go.
And Vicky Whitelaw, who you mentioned, she's already up towards the front. She's played a really important role with a lot of the younger riders in Australian cycling on the domestic circuit. Very keen to pass on her knowledge. She's actually an invaluable asset to the overall development of Australian cycling, because it's not just a coach from the side of the road telling you what to do. It's a coach and a mentor inside the race showing you how to do it. Sprint coming up.
Yeah, certainly. As we see this sprint opening up, we can see lots of power-ups as Tracy comes to the front. Schroeder trying to come round Tacey. Very close on the line there. Luxford up there as well, Matt.
Yeah, good triathlete Laura Luxford. Her and her sister Annabelle have both been riding brilliantly across the last couple of months. But Tracy was so strong, holding her power all the way through to the finish line. And she's staying on the gas, causing a little bit of a split.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, you see on the right-hand side of your screen, 6.2 watts per kilogram. So yeah, it's almost like a points race on the track. When you go through the one of the intermediate sprints, you carry on the power through the line, trying to just force a little breakaway and force a little group to go clear. And you see already the gap starting to open up as we get the confirmation of the points and the team points on the left of the screen. R3R there with 6 points. Sydney CC with 5.
And then it was Turbo with 4, followed by the Aussie Hump Day Ride ladies crew with 3. And in this ride, there's other couple of prizes that are up for grabs as well, Hannah. Importantly, there's a ride-on prize. So the rider who has the most ride-ons gets a prize as a result of that. So those of you watching, if you've got your favourite, get on board, give them a ride-on, provide some encouragement.
Yeah, you can do that all through the Zwift companion app. So get on there. If you haven't got it, it's very, very easy to download from your app store. Give these riders some encouragement. Just look there, Lou Bates, just getting some from help from her soigneur at the side there, passing a drink, putting a towel around. It's very, very hot at the minute in the UK, so having to adapt to the climates. We saw the last couple of days, 35, 36 degrees, depending on where you are in the UK. So managing your heat is very, very important in indoor racing, Matt.
That is warm in anybody's language, and I say that as an Australian. So many people using the invisibility at this point. They figure that on this course it's probably not going to be valuable at the back end of the race, so they want to get that power up out of the way early and hope for drafting, aero or featherweight, lightweight at the back end of the race. Yeah,
definitely. And as I said before, look at the power up that's going to suit this course. If you get the burrito or the invisibility and you think, well, that's not going to help me in the finish, use it to your advantage, but you want to be looking to get the lightweight feather power up for today's race.
Here's a look at the Aussie Hump Day Ride team in purple. They've got Benergy, who's been riding really well. I Race Like a Girl is a team with a few riders in there that show the international element of this event. The Netherlands, the United States and Canada represented on that squad, which is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And all racing on different time zones as well, as we see R3R ladies, Lou Bates, as we got to look at before, Charlie Walters and Sarah Dawson. So another team of mixed riders too. St Kilda Cycling Club, one you know very well, Matt.
Yeah, this is one of my local clubs, and it's a team that has got plenty of horsepower. The Luxford sisters, Justine Burrow, Brie Wilson's been brilliant recently, and Samara Shepherd, who you spoke about. So the format of this race, trying to collect points at the King of the Mountains prizes, the intermediate sprints, I think St Kilda will be a tough team to beat. Sydney CC might have something to say about it. They've got Sarah Gigante.
Yeah, Sarah Gigante, absolute talent coming through the Australian system there. Taryn Heather as well. Sarah Gigante just going from strength to strength, and she's so young as well. Emily Watson, Chelsea Holmes from that team, Jenny Perron. In Team Draft, we've got Silke Katerina, Catherine Holt and Jen Arnold.
And then Team Fearless. And again, the international element of this. We've got Wales, South Africa, United States, Germany, Great Britain represented. That is one of the great things about this format. We're restricted with how much we can travel, but we can race against anybody from any corner of the globe.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It doesn't matter on the time zones, does it? You know, a lot of riders are up very, very early doing this race series. Others, it's night time for them. So, yeah, it's brilliant that no matter where you are in the world, everyone can do this racing from the comfort of their own home.
And good to see the Swedes represented as well, Swedish Zwifters. I imagine that they really enjoy Zwift throughout the winter months in Sweden.
Also, Charlotte Watts from Turbo, Kathy Collin, another rider from South Africa. Helen McKay, one to watch, as we mentioned before, and Dion Wang.
And the next team, the Velocity Vixen team. A team, again, made up of a mix of nationalities. I like the invitational format of this event. This is the first of the 4 races. The peloton, all still together at this point. The big climbs still to come. Vision E-Racing. This is a team that is pretty well represented and being led by Lizzie Duncan, who's strong triathlete. She'll be just getting warmed up after the 40 kilometres here.
Yeah, she really thrives on these long stages. So certainly will suit her today. She's a very, very strong rider. Went from being an amateur triathlete to a pro triathlete this summer. So, you know, really benefiting from riding on Zwift, racing on Zwift, and, you know, a rider who loves to push the big gears.
And she's been a winner of some 70.3 races, so half Ironman distance events, including the winner of one in Oman, in Muscat. I've had the privilege, Hannah, of being over there a few times for the Tour of Oman, and it is a fantastic country to visit.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? And, you know, some great roads for racing on, isn't it? Very hilly, actually.
Yeah, really hilly. And ironically, in that race, the key mountain is known as Green Mountain, and there's not a blade of grass.
They can hope. They can only hope.
Yeah, now they're approaching the first of the climbs, and you can see there's plenty of horsepower being put out at the front as they're jostling for position. You want to start all of these climbs just as you do in real-world racing, near the front. We're on board now with Laura Luxford. She's a picture of concentration, and her heart rate, Hannah, is at 185 beats per minute.
Yeah, this is really high, isn't it? And obviously it depends what her max heart rate is, but you know, you don't, on the lower slopes of here, you don't want to let yourself go into the red, as we say in cycling, because once you go into the red, it's so hard to recover and come back from that. But she's looking very, very comfortable. She's got a nice cadence there, keeping it consistent at 96 revs per minute. And her watts, you know, simultaneously aren't too high. She gets out the saddle now, looking very, very comfortable indeed. Vicky Whitelaw up there in the top 5 as well, as is Helen McKay just on the wheel of Vicky Whitelaw. So all the big names, all the big names toward the front. Yeah, it is as we start to go towards the lower slopes there. We're at -3.
Laura Luxford still riding up towards the front. She's holding good position. Heart rate is still up in that dangerously high zone, but the speed is still high at this point, 47 kilometres per hour. The race has not settled down at all. Good to see Emily Watts up towards the front, one of the youngsters from Sydney. She's been riding well on this platform. And Chelsea Holmes also up towards the front, South Australian. She's been really good the last couple of months.
Yeah, she certainly has. I think a point we were going to touch on before, Matt, as the sprint was opening up with Vicky Whitelaw helping a lot of the younger riders and, you know, showing them within the race as well how to race. It's great having a coach and a rider who you can race with, who actually, you know, has been there and done that. She's won stages of the Giro Rosa. She's won a stage at the Tour de l'Ord, the Tour of Ardèche in France. So I think it's really important having a rider who has the experience, has, you know, sort of got the jersey, and you know, can really take confidence from what she's saying and the advice she's able to give to the younger riders in Australia.
And particularly important after you've had a bad day. She can put a bad day in context, so as you don't beat yourself up over it, and you can come back the next chance to race and show exactly what you're made of. Look at the twisted expression on the face of Brevine. She's under some serious pressure. 186 beats per minute, but I like that her cadence is still high. 94 RPM. The watts are also high. That's when it really hurts.
Yeah, that's what's the most important, isn't it? She's sitting nicely, nice and comfortable within the top 10. And just keeping the consistency in the cadence, keeping the high watts, 5 watts per kilogram now, as the slopes here, 4% gradient now. She starts to just move up a little bit up towards the front, just to take as much benefit as possible from the draft effect. But it's Lizzie Duncan on the front setting the pace here. Just look at the watts per kilogram here, Matt. 5.3 from Lizzie Duncan.
Huge. She's been followed by Sarah Gigante, the Australian individual time trial champion. Next in line is Justine Burrow, silver medalist at the National Road Championships this year, behind none other than World Championship silver medalist Amanda Spratt. So Justine Burrow riding strongly. And normally if we get on board with her, you can see that her cadence is quite different to Brie Vine. It's really low. And Hannah, as we talk about watts, cadence, heart rate to measure effort, there's no need for any of those measures when you look at the expression on the face of Brie Vine. That tells the story. Yeah,
it certainly does, doesn't it? And I think, you can look at all the watts and the data, but, consequently, you need to stay within the bunch. You can't, look at that and think, well, that's a little bit over my my threshold. There's something that I can't sustain for a long period of time. You've just got to push as hard as you can to be able to stay with these leaders here. So, look at the front of the race.
If it's over your threshold, bad luck. Get a new threshold or get dropped. It's pretty simple. Katie Banerjee is riding towards the front. She's in 6th position. Lizzie Duncan, we look at her numbers and you look at her heart rate. Well, we don't know what her max is. She's a little bit older than Brie Vine, so perhaps her max is slightly lower, but she's riding 167 beats per minute. And she's still punching out at that close to 5 watts per kilo. She is riding super strongly.
Yeah, she's riding incredibly, isn't she? The British rider here on the front. She's just setting the pace, and maybe that's where she's most comfortable at, Matt. That she's setting the pace. She doesn't want to drop too far down the peloton, the pack here. She wants to make sure that she, can be able to cover any moves that might go on this climb, just to be ready to pounce. Watts is coming up towards the front now. Lou Bates is coming up towards the front as well. Another great climber from the UK.
And Lou Bates is getting a bit of support online. Zwift Live. Post your comments, give your thoughts, give your encouragement, and don't forget to give your ride-ons, because there's a ride-on prize for each of the riders at the conclusion of the race. 19.2 kilometres to go, not quite at the top of the climb, and there's a little bit of extra climbing after this as well, but without points up for grabs. But as we saw in the men's race, Hannah, it was the part that had climbing without points up for grabs that caused the major split.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, it's still quite far to the finish if they want to try and split this race up. But we have lost a number of riders. You can see how much smaller the peloton is now. So only around about 20 riders in this front group, but all the big names are present.
Chelsea Holmes at the front of the race. A little bit further back, Russell sitting towards the rear of the group. Justine Burrow showing herself at the head of affairs. I put the commentator's curse on Justine Burrow throughout the National Road Series, Hannah. I picked her as potentially the winner for every single race. I'm not going to pick her as the winner today. That will increase her chances.
Don't do it to her. Don't curse her today. But here we get a vision of Anna Russell, looking very, very smooth and comfortable. Matt there, she's 170 beats per minute, just wiping the sweat from her brow, but sitting comfortably in this top 10, sitting 7th place, but looking great.
I'm not keen to play poker against Anna Russell. She has got an expression on her face that would make you think that her heart rate is 70, not 170. She looks really composed.
Yeah. Incredible how these riders have different riding styles. Some are able to keep themselves really composed on the bike in the races, really focused, whereas others it's just their natural way to have a big pain face on them. There's no poker for them.
You don't want to join me in the garage. I was in the garage today riding on Zwift, doing a team time trial, and with the group that I was in, we're on Discord, and I think I was accused of sounding like I was trying to redo the scene from the cafe with When Harry Met Sally. I was puffing and panting, just trying to keep up. There's Anna Russell right towards the front. Katie Banerjee also towards the head of the race. She's riding well. Lou Bates, so good. She was brilliant in the sprint at the mall, and she's climbing fantastically. So that's a message to everybody else still in this group, Hannah. Get rid of Lou Bates because she sprints really quickly. Turns out she climbs well too.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, riders and teams are going to have to start to look at who else is in this group who, is a threat and poses as a threat towards the finish. Sarah Gigante, can go for a long one. Do you want to try and, throw some counter-attacks in here to try and, split the group up and make it better for yourself, for your teams, but also not to drop too many riders from your team that you can't pick up points in the intermediates either, because, as we know, all those points go towards the team.
And we're on board now with Justine Burrow. What did I tell you about cadence?
This is incredible. I've never seen, incredible. 67 revs per minute, 172 beats as well, but just look at how she's moving herself on the bike as well. A lot of I guess a lot of energy being wasted through her upper body as well, through all the movement. But looking very, very strong here.
She is so strong. She muscles the bike to the top of climbs. It is phenomenal. We watched her at the National Road Championships this year on a really difficult course with a big climb up Mount Buninyong, and she was toe-to-toe with Amanda Spratt, one of the best climbers in the world. It was an outstanding ride by Justine Burrow. On the classification for this series overall, Hannah, I've seen 4 jerseys still in this lead group from the St Kilda Cycling Club.
Yeah, well, they've really come here with such a strong team, haven't they? Justine Burrow, who we've mentioned, Bree Wilson, Laura Luxford, Annabelle Luxford, the sister of Laura, and Samara Shepherd. As we mentioned before, a finalist in the Zwift Academy in 2019. So, they've got a really well-rounded team, I would say, the St Kilda Cycling Club, a team who can do everything.
This is Katie Banerjee, who we're focusing on now. This is not invisibility power-ups being used. This is a chance for us to focus on Katie Banerjee. She was riding at 5 watts per kilo. It's backed off ever so slightly, but she's going to have to pick up the pace as she does, as she moves towards 7.6, because the woman that she's chasing is the Australian time trial champion. It's Sarah Gigante, who is on the move.
Yeah, well, we were expecting this from Sarah Gigante, weren't we? But we're just not quite sure when she was going to make her move. She's got excellent form this year, former Australian road race champion as well, and just climbing very, very nicely. Keeping the high watts. She's opened up a 2.3 second gap to Banerjee now, but Banerjee is doing a great job of closing this down. She's spotted the move from Gigante. She's not wasted any time to look around for other riders to chase it down. She just wants to get across to Gigante and bring her back.
And there's Sarah in real life on the left. Her avatar is wearing the cool hat. She hails from the hipster region of Melbourne in the northern suburbs, rides for the Brunswick Cycling Club, and when she was dominating junior races at the National Championships, when asked what her training strategy was, her answer was, go out and have fun. Well, she's having fun, but it's a painful kind of fun. She is really applying the pressure.
Yeah, she certainly isn't. She's doing a superb job in real life racing, e-racing as well. But, get out the saddle, trying to put as much power down now. She's settled into a rhythm now on this climb. She's another rider who keeps a low to medium revs per minute, Matt, 78, 79. Yes. So she's one of those riders that's in between, but still able to keep the high wattage, 5.6 watts per kilogram now.
I would have called it low cadence if we didn't have Justine Burrow as a reference point.
Yeah, definitely.
She's already out to an 8-second advantage. It's Katie Banerjee who's leading the chasing, then Lou Bates. Those two, both contenders to be able to win today's stage. But Sarah Gigante is making a real statement here.
Yeah, she is, and I think if those two riders at the front, Banerjee and Bates, and now Godby's getting across to that duo, if they don't start working together to try and make inroads to Gigante, could we see this all being over? Because we know Gigante's a very strong rider, she's a great time trialist. She just excels whenever the road goes up. But it's sort of like now or never, really. Don't want to let it get too much more of a gap, because just behind, as you can see, within the top 10. Russell is down to 17 seconds now.
Yeah, it happens really, really quickly. So the rest of that group, they need to, if they want to work together to chase down Sarah Gigante, they need to stick together and get themselves well organised, because Sarah Gigante is going to take some serious chasing. Here's a look at the attack from Sarah Gigante. And when she went, she really opened up the throttle, close to 8 watts per kilo.
Yeah, it was a superb acceleration, wasn't it? Just from second wheel there, and just no one was able to react to her move as she reaches the top here. Banerjee has made a superb effort here in closing the gap. I think that gap's only around 2 or 3 seconds now, Matt. And
she's on.
Could we see a small group of 5 forming here?
Yes. It looks like it. Katie Banerjee, what a ride. She stayed composed. She didn't panic in responding to that attack by Sarah Gigante, and she's bridged across just at the top of the climb. So too Lou Bates. Godby is also there, and Justine Burrow. Has she managed to make contact with them as well? Not quite by the looks of it. It was Barrow across in 5th position. So Gigante, Banerjee, Bates, then Godby, followed by Barrow. Bree Wilson was in 6th position. So they're the points for the first of the Queen of the Mountains.
Well,
that puts the Sydney CC team at the top of the table on 11 points. R3R in 2nd position on 10, followed by the Aussie Hump Day Ride ladies in 3rd position on 8. So it's really tight, Hannah.
Yeah, it is very tight, isn't it? And I was just going to say that the trio timed it to perfection to catch Gigante before the road started going down. They were able to just crest the top of the hill, make the junction with Gigante before Gigante was able to pick up any more speed. All 4 of these riders working very, very well together now. Bates leading the front as Banerjee takes over. So, yeah, all working well.
4 out in front with 4 chasers at just 3.5 seconds behind. And one of the big differences between racing on Zwift and racing in the real world, if it was a gap of 3.5 seconds, the leaders are more likely to sit up. But on this platform, 3.5 seconds, okay, we've got a gap. Let's go.
Yeah, it's no point hanging around and waiting. And, it just means that the 4 behind need to work very, very well together to try and get back. But at the speed that these riders here, 73 kilometers per hour now on this descent, working very, very well. Godby to the front as we see her in picture. She's actually in the top position.
Yeah.
She's not even having to waste any energy in pedaling, so she's just been able to maintain 76 kilometers per hour, Matt.
But look at her arms. I just saw with the glimmer of light, her arms are just glistening with sweat. You spoke before about the warmth in Great Britain and trying to manage heat when you're racing indoors. It is a real challenge. It can be cold and it's still difficult to manage your heat when you're racing indoors.
Yeah, it certainly can, and it really affects your performance, especially if you're a rider who you're not used to the humidity or the heat. And as you said, even when it's cold, you're always getting hot and sweaty in indoor racing anyway. But Godby starts to pedal now, but she's still able to save energy on this descent.
Well, they're still doing more than 70 kilometres per hour. The super tuck kicking in at the 58 kilometre per hour mark. It can also be beneficial at this point to assist with the recuperation, to flush some of the lactic acid out of the system, to roll the legs over when you're sitting in the slipstream.
Yeah, it certainly can, and it depends how much of an effort you've made prior to that on that climb, as to how much lactate is built up in your legs. As we start to go back uphill now, you'll see Godby starts to pedal. As the speed still 33 kilometers per hour, even on this slight incline. But the gap's still maintained, Matt, for the 4 chasers behind.
It's status quo. It's exactly as it was, effectively, from the top of the climb. The chasers, Justine Burrow, we've got Duncombe, along with Lethbridge, and also Wilson. Then the next group's at 27 seconds behind. So those 3, they can work well together. In fact, they have. They've closed the gap. They've rejoined. We now have 8 out in front.
Well, look at this. You can just see how things can change so quickly. The 4 behind, obviously, working very, very well together. Alice Lethbridge, a rider who's just moved up here towards the front of the group, gone straight past them. Lou Bates in there as well.
There's another climb to come. You really want to try and get a bit of recovery in, if that is even possible.
Just looking at the top 10 as well, there's a few seconds shaved off from Holmes and Russell as well. That time gap is coming down slowly as well. 11.4 kilometres to go. Have they left it too late? But it's looking at the way that the four have just got onto them. It's never over until you cross the finish line, Matt.
No, and that chasing group, they've also got Annabelle Luxford in there with them. They're now at 25 seconds. And if this front group get a little bit too comfortable and figure, okay, I'm going to try and recuperate for the next climb, keep something in reserve, that gives the chasers a chance to get themselves back in the mix.
Yeah, it certainly does, doesn't it? And all riders now just, it's a little bit cagey, isn't it? No one's to remain at the front. As Barrow just comes towards the front. Lou Bates sitting nice and tight, making use of the draft effect. And Banerjee towards the back as well as Lizzie Duncan. So Lizzie Duncan, the rider that we were talking about before, the gone from amateur triathlon to pro triathlon this summer.
Yeah, she might have needed around about 1 hour's worth of warming up to get ready for this event. It's very short for her.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, you know, riders, if they know that and they know they take a long time to warm up and get into that race situation, you know, they'll do a longer warm up. They'll, you know, be on the turbo maybe, you know, an hour and a half before, get the heart rate going, open the legs up and, you know, do a number of efforts to try and open up the system. If they know how their cells rate, how they work.
Well, as we take a look through the couple of the teams that are represented in this group, and we've got one team with 3 riders in that lead group and another team with 2 riders in that lead group. And when you look at the overall classification, it's Vision E-Racing who are really well represented. They're the team in the black and white. They've got 3 riders in a front group of 8. That's a fantastic position for Vision E-Racing.
Yeah,
they've got Duncombe, Lethbridge and Godby in the leading group.
Yeah, superb position for that team, isn't it? And you know, they are the team that all the other riders in the leading group will be looking towards now. What move are they going to do? They're able, with the numbers, to counter-attack the group, try and force another breakaway and really put the other riders under pressure. But just looking, there's a number of riders, big riders, that have missed this front group. Vicky Whitelaw, one of our pre-race favourites, not in this group, not even in the top 10 either.
Yeah, the chasers that are at 27 seconds behind. Chelsea Holmes, she's been riding really well. Anna Russell, who we saw looking really composed on the earlier slopes of that climb that they've just gone over the top of. Godby at the front from the United States. We saw the assistance on the side for her. Having assistance is really handy. I mean, Bree Vine's not in this group, but no doubt Jay Vine will be assisting her at the moment, giving some encouragement. And if she's in a position to collect some points, still be there inside the top 10, the top 15 in points every week, every round is really important to performing overall in the Off the Map Tour.
Yeah, certainly is. You know, although we've got a leading group of 8, the points do go down to the first 22 riders over the line. So very, very important to pick up the points on the finish line as well. So it's not over just because you've missed the front group, but all important to take assistance if you can. Any handing up a bottle or a cold towel, especially.
Lou Bates drifting to the back. She's the one that's got the sort of aqua, red and black colours. She sprinted really well along them all, so she's going to be difficult to beat if she's still there at the finish. They've got another little climb to come, and that could be an opportunity to try and distance Lou Bates, but she showed on the previous climb of Leith Hill that she's got good climbing legs on today.
Yeah, very good climbing legs, hasn't she? And she's just monitoring the front. She's constantly going from the front to the back of this group, keeping a high focus on the front. Barrow towards the front as well, and Banerjee up there as well.
Well, the St Kilda team, they have Justine Burrow and Bree Wilson in this front group. 2 women who know each other really well. So good result for St Kilda to have 2 riders in this group.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? And I think it's you know, important when, if you do have you know, a teammate in the group, you know each other well, you know each other's strengths and weaknesses, what you're good at, and also you can be speaking to each other over you know, a communication channel, WhatsApp or Discord. How are you going to play this race out? what are you going to be able to do to be able to take the win, and how are you going to be able to work together, try and get the better of the team of Vision E Racing.
At the front of the race, leading group of 8 riders. They hold on to an advantage of almost 30 seconds over the chasers, down to 8 kilometres remaining. Over the previous climb, it was Sarah Gigante who attacked. She led across the top. At one point, she had an advantage of 8 or 9 seconds, but by the time she reached the top of the climb, it was Banerjee who had closed it down rapidly, Kate Banerjee, and she got second at the top of the climb. And she rode really well with timing her effort on that climb to collect some points for her team. And she's been riding really, really well.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at Gigante, been keeping an eye on her, and she hasn't come to the front at all, Matt, of this leading group. She's really saving as much energy as possible, making use of the draft effect within Zwift. It's just like in real life, saving energy. And yeah, it just shows to me, is she waiting to pounce? Is she waiting to do a big explosive attack again to put the other 7 riders in this group under pressure?
I think she will attack again. Unfortunately for the chasers, we saw Anna Russell, Chasey Holmes. There's just the 3 of them who are chasing, and that makes their life really, really tough. They've done well to maintain the deficit of just 29 seconds, not lose any more ground than that. But as we've spoken about, the important accumulation of points across the 4 races of the Off the Map Tour, they need to stick at it and pick up more points. Back on board with Lou Bates. She's getting ready for the next climb, trying to stay composed.
Yeah, looking very composed indeed, isn't she? Just maintaining a very, very nice cadence, looking very solid on the bike. Hardly any expression on her face either. So looking very, very good indeed.
And she's riding at the front of this group. She's the one who's setting the tempo. Justine Burrow now starting to come to the front. She's up in the ante. The watts per kilo are getting higher. She's up in the 5 marker. Justine Burrow trying to pour on the pressure. I'm looking to see if we can find any sort of movement from Sarah Gigante. For now, at least, she's at the back of the group, perhaps looking to try and catch them by surprise.
Yeah, and I think, there's teams in here who've got strength in numbers. Gigante is the sole rider from the Sydney CC. So she's having to really play to her strengths.
We're having a look at Justine Burrow. She's 71 revs per minute. She's spinning a small gear.
Yeah, in her terms, yeah, isn't it? But yeah, still, putting everything through the pedals, through the cranks there, and yeah, a bit higher a cadence than we've been seeing before.
She's a fantastic athlete. I think she's 40 years of age. She works full-time as a physiotherapist, and she is an international elite-level cyclist. She is outstanding. The power is now really starting to be applied at the front. It is go time with 7.1 kilometres remaining. And Justine Burrow pouring on the pressure at the front. Her heart rate is not super high, but this has got to be right near the red zone for Justine Burrow. The body language tells us, and if you had any doubts about Lou Bates and her ability to climb, well, she's answering every one of those questions. Yeah, she can climb.
Yeah, she certainly can. Maintaining that front top 3, just patrolling, isn't she? Whereas Justine Burrow, as you said, very, very high. Just look at the data from Bree Wilson there. Very high heart rate indeed. She must be touching towards the red zone. She's just dropping towards the back of this group of 8 as we're on Box Hill now, Matt.
Yeah, this is a climb that I imagine that you've actually ridden in real life a few times, Hannah.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, it's quite a nice climb. It's not too steep, but it just seems to go on forever and ever. I think once you've ridden it a number of times, you start to learn, the different points, how long to go until the top. It's Gigante who's making the move now up towards the front, out of the saddle, and really low cadence. But look at those watts now, Matt.
Yeah, this is the least surprising element of stage 1 of the Off the Map Tour. Sarah Gigante attacking up a climb. She is throwing 8 watts per kilo at this attack. It's an impressive performance by Sarah Gigante. It's easy to forget, Hannah, how young she still is, because she already has an Australian road title and time trial title to her name. But I think she's still just 19 or 20 years of age. Sarah Gigante really putting the others, attempting at least to put the others to the sword. She's opened up almost a 5-second advantage. We saw her launch the same sort of attack on Leith Hill. She got out to 8 or 9 seconds, but then they clawed her back in just as they went across the top of the climb. And it was Lethbridge who got there first. But because of that move up the climb, it split the group into two, and then it was only on the descent that it rejoined and became 4. But the gap is continuing to grow for Sarah Gigante. Justine Burrow doing the chasing. She's at 7 seconds behind. Lethbridge there again. They're bunching up. They're all working well together. Bree Wilson, 190. As we go into the garage, the pain cave for Bree Wilson. She is riding at the front, leading the chase, doing all that she can for the St Kilda Cycling Club to claw back in Sarah Gigante.
Well, look at this move from Lou Bates coming towards the front now of this chasing group. Got this distinctive jersey on her shoulders. Justine Burrow up there. It's all or never, Matt, now to be in the chase with Gigante. 7.5 seconds lead.
Well, she had 8 seconds or 9 seconds at the top of the previous climb, but then it was the numbers that managed to get back to her. They go across the top of the climb, just 5.4 kilometres remaining at the front for Sarah Gigante. This is the sort of gap that a national time trial champion can maintain through to the finish. It will hurt, but she'll enjoy inflicting the pain on the others.
Yeah, and I think, these riders who are able to make themselves go so deep into the red, and those who are like time trialists are able to, really put themselves into the hurt locker and try and maintain that gap. Starting to come down just a little bit now as we start to see a few counter-attacks from that chasing group. And a feather of power-up just being used as we crest the top here.
And they've got the strength in numbers. It helps out in the real world, as it does on Zwift, and they're reeling Sarah Gigante back in. It's now down to 3 seconds. You can see how quickly they're closing back in. This is Jackie Godby. She's been riding really well, the American.
Yeah, well, as soon as the group just caught Gigante there, Godby straight over the top, counter-attack that, and she's already started to open up a gap. Lou Bates, the rider, is straight onto the wheel of Godby, as is Lizzie Duncan. Alice Lethbridge has managed to get in terms here, but Gigante now, just look at that, 2 seconds behind this group now as we're onto the descent. This is a very, very fast section. You can see there, 81 kilometres per hour.
And if you are off the back, as that 2 second gap is for Sarah Gigante, she's got Bree Wilson with her, but it can make it really difficult to close it back in because there's a few numbers together out in front, and that can be a tough 2 seconds to chase back down, particularly after the effort that she's just put in with the attack up the climb.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, if you're already very well into the red zone, you just can't recover quick enough on this descent to try and get the speed. If you look at the front riders here, if they're going 81 kilometers per hour, if you're 2-3 seconds behind, you've got to be going 90 kilometers per hour to be able to close that gap. So, to be able to try and find that extra speed, it's very, very difficult.
And now the gap is starting to grow for Justine Burrow, Sarah Gigante and Bree Wilson. They find themselves at close to 5 seconds behind the 5 leaders. How quickly the tables have turned.
Yeah, well, I think, on this course, it was kind of either Sarah Gigante had to do it on that climb or, she just had to wait for the sprint between the top 8. So it was now or never for her. It hasn't quite played into her hands, but Lizzie Duncan putting in a big shift at the front there.
Lethbridge also riding strongly at the front, so too is Godby. And this leading group of 5, recognising the fact that one of the pre-race favourites, Sarah Gigante, is now at more than 6 seconds behind, and they're inside the last 3 kilometres, so it's time to open up the throttle.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think all these riders will see that and think, we need to kind of work together, push on. Let's not wait for her or Brie Wilson. 8 seconds now is the gap, and Godby looking very, very good towards the front here. Although been doing a lot on the front. How will she fare with chances to go in the sprint finish?
And it shows how important tactics are in Zwift racing. It's not just who's got the most horsepower. I think if you take a look at the data at the end of this race, Sarah Gigante will have the highest number in terms of average watts per kilo throughout the race, but she finds herself at more than 10 seconds behind the leaders inside 1.8 kilometres remaining. She's not in contention to win despite having all that horsepower.
No, she's not, but this is a real pinch point here as we come out of the underground section. If your legs are already screaming and burning, they're going to hurt even more after that little bit. Lou Bates just getting back on terms, closing the gap. But you can see already at the front here, half a second is opening up with Godby and Duncombe.
And everybody knows that horrible sign that can pop up in front of you that says, close the gap. And it can read 2 metres, 3 metres, 4 metres, and it can be really difficult to close. Katie Banerjee up towards the front. Lethbridge is also there. It is a battle between 5 because Wilson, Gigante and Barrow now find themselves at 17 seconds behind.
Yeah, with just over 1 kilometre remaining, it looks like it's all over for those riders. But the 5 out in front here, what power-up have they got for the finish? What have they been holding back and keeping back? It's all about the timing of when they're going to use the power-up as well to their advantage. As you said before, it's not all about the physical effort. It's also knowing at the right point when to press it, when to open up and start accelerating as well. As you said before, in the first sprint on the mole, Lou Bates very, very fast as well.
Inside the last kilometre, 5 riders out in front, battling it out for stage honours and stage 1 of the Off the Map Tour. Lethbridge towards the front. Bates showed plenty of speed early on. Banerjee is also in the mix. Is she perhaps going just a little bit too early? Godby from the United States. She's also showing herself to have really strong legs as she gets herself at the head of the group. She's punching out some big watts down towards the last 500 metres. You've got to make sure you don't go too soon, Hannah.
Yeah, and it's a long way for Lethbridge to be leading this one out. Banerjee sitting very comfortably there, making the most of the draft effect as we start to see a burrito drop now. That makes them undraftable as the sprint starts to open up, Matt.
The power-ups coming into effect. Bates, Lethbridge managing to get over the top. Bates in second position. Duncombe it is that now gets her nose in front. They're moving up into the red numbers at the head of the race. They're punching out huge power. Duncombe still leading. Lethbridge closing in rapidly. It will be tight on the line, but Lethbridge takes stage 1 in the Off the Map Tour with perfect timing, Hannah.
Yeah, wonderful timing there from Lethbridge. She just got it on the line, and it just shows you that experience really comes in as we see the 3 behind here, and Russell and a rider from the Sydney CC and St Kilda as well, just coming in towards the finish.
And importantly, the minor placings to make sure that they've got themselves in a position to be able to get points for the next few races as well, so their team can take out the overall honours. But that was a real tactical race, Hannah, at the front. We saw Gigante, perhaps she was the strongest rider in the race, but when do you use your energy? I love that she was bold enough to attack, but ultimately she ended up paying the price for it.
Yeah, she paid a huge price, didn't she? And she just wasn't quite able to get back on terms when the chasing group caught her. She just had nothing left in the tank, and she had made a huge effort on that attack. As we see the sprint for the minor places here. It's very important to try and pick up as many as possible. That's why you'll see them sprinting for all the points possible.
Well, everything down to 22nd position, and every little point matters. Likewise with the intermediate sprints, the Queen of the Mountains points as well. They all go towards the team tally. But it was Emily Watts, who we're now on board with, might be still just inside a top 20 finish for Emily Watts. The outstanding team performance, though, today, Vision E Racing, with so many riders at the front of the race. Duncombe and Lethbridge along with Godby, they have ridden outstandingly. Lethbridge taking the win ahead of Duncombe and then Godby. It was a 1-2-3 for Vision E Racing, followed by Bates and then Banerjee making it the top 5.
Yeah, it's very impressive by Vision E Racing, wasn't it? And, Lizzie Duncan did a huge shift on the front for a lead out as well for Lethbridge. So, it worked really well in her favour. And that just shows the strength of Duncombe from her triathlon background. Incredible results, and it's paid off in the end to work together as a team. They were able to close the gap on Gigante, and top 3 in the first off the map. Very impressive.
And then the gap to Wilson, Gigante and Barrow was 19-20 seconds. So they lost a fair bit of time in the end. It was then in 9th position, Anna Russell, followed by Chelsea Holmes in 10th place. And they found themselves at a deficit of 1 minute and 14 seconds. But importantly for the off-the-map tour, Hannah, time doesn't matter. It's all about points. So for the likes of Anna Russell and Chelsea Holmes, they can assess this performance today, take a look at the course that confronts them on Monday, and reset themselves for stage number 2.
Yeah, they certainly can, and it's it's not all over for them. They've still been able to pick up crucial points towards the classifications, but I think Sarah Gigante, after that effort, might be a little bit disappointed with today. I know when she gets the bit between her teeth, she always wants to win, but nonetheless, great racing for stage 1.
Well, again, you can see how important tactics are. Both Sarah Gigante and Justine Burrow, they've averaged 4.6 watts per kilo, whereas Lethbridge has won the race with an average power output of 4.3. So it's when you use your power, not just your power-ups, but your own personal power.
Yeah, it all makes a difference, doesn't it? When to use your power, at which point, how many efforts and accelerations do you make during the race? Because every time you make an acceleration to close a gap or to make a small attack to try and break the peloton, that's eating into your energy resources. And it just means that you've got not as much left for the finish, for the sprint. It's all about riding conservatively.
Yeah, if we get a chance, we'll take a look at a replay of that sprint finish. Lethbridge and Duncombe, the two teammates, Godby in 3rd position. But Lethbridge, what was she thinking at 200 metres to go? Because it looked as if her teammate was about to win, but she just nailed it in the end.
Yeah, well, the gap was opening up, wasn't it? But Lethbridge able to just close in on the back wheel there, and it was really on the line that she only just got in front of her teammate. But I think with the team classification, it's all about all of you sprint for it. Kind of not just do a lead out, but make sure that you're all going for that sprint. As you can see there, the team points on your screen now. Vision E Racing with Sydney CC in 2nd and St Kilda Cycling Club in 3rd.
Well, Vision E Racing with 3 riders in that front group, they now sit on 78 points. It's Sydney CC in 2nd position on 61 points, followed then by St Kilda Cycling Club. They're on 47. Aussie Hump Day Ride in 4th position at 36 points, and R3R ran out the top 5 on 29 points. You can see going down to 9th position, just the 1 point for Team Fearless. It falls away pretty quickly. On day 1, we've emerged with 3 really dominant teams. Vision E Racing, Sydney CC, Sarah Gigante doing a great job for them, and the St Kilda Cycling Club. I think over the next 3 races in this series, Hannah, we'll be talking about the riders from those teams a lot.
Yeah, we certainly will. And they were always, the teams in the top 3, top 4, they were always present at the front of the race, at the head of affairs, scoring points in the intermediates and at the finish. And not to forget Lou Bates as well for R3R, the rider there solely from that team in the front group, amassing a great number of points. She's not completely out of it with 29 at the minute with her team, but it's going to be a big gap to close over the next 3 races.
Well, the next race, that's on Monday. So it's Vision E Racing leading the women's race. It's the Canyon Esports team leading the men's race. It was an outstanding performance by Ollie Jones in the men's race to get the win there ahead of Jay Vine. I don't think there were too many surprises in either of the races, Hannah. Both the men's and the women's, the pre-race favourites, both shone and rose to the top. It's the old cliche, the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, it certainly does, doesn't it? And, all these riders within that front group, they'll have known today's course. They will have done a pre-race recount of it, as you would in the real life. And, they come in with a little bit of a game plan as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Vision E-Racing, had a huge tactic coming into this race. They'd all spoken to each other, how they were going to play it out. And they all know each other very, very well as well, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and, each of their riders' forte.
And as of tomorrow, all of us can get involved in the Off the Map Tour. It kicks off tomorrow. There are 4 races to be able to do. You'll have the brilliant looking map kit in game. If you do all 4 of the races, you'll be able to unlock the opportunity to buy the map jersey so you can take your Zwift achievements out into the real world. And the course that is on tomorrow, it's not necessarily the course that we saw today, but if you participate in those events, you'll get a chance to ride each of the courses the elite men and the elite women do. And Hannah, there's a couple of options. You can either participate in a race format and really test yourself, and there's grades in those race formats, or you can just do it as a Grand Fondo style ride. So there's the chance to be sociable, or there's a chance to see if you can beat your friends.
Yeah, why not? And everyone's got that competitive streak, haven't they? And I think it's brilliant as well that you can, get the jersey in game, but also get it to ride in real life as well. And it's quite a swaggy jersey, isn't it? I really like the look of it.
It's a good-looking jersey. Thanks for joining me in commentary, Hannah. I look forward to joining you and Pat Shaw again on Monday for race number 2 in the Off the Map Tour.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. It was brilliant racing today. Canyon lead the men's race. It's Vision E Racing leading the women's race. Join us again on Monday for race number 2 in the Off the Map Tour for 2020. And hopefully I see you out on Zwift participating in the all-entry mass participation version of the Off the Map Tour. Until next time, ride on.